Episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. I'm Austin. I'm a knockout. I've watched a lot of wrestling.
I'm David. I'm a noob. I haven't watched a whole lot of wrestling, but you know what? I'm taking an attitude about it this week.
Hey! I see the way you tried to tie that in, because this week we returned to the Attitude Era.
I'm glad you appreciate the reference. I'm doing my best here, man, all right?
Yeah! This week, the clock the calendar has turned forward as we move from 1997 to 1998.
Ooh.
The
year I actually existed.
Yes, I would have existed for 2 years by this point.
I know. Aren't you so cool having age?
Yes, I am. So today is about a month after our last time visit to the Attitude Era when it was December, which was December 97. This is January 98. There's been 4 episodes of Raw and the Royal Rumble pay-per-view since we last watched. This episode is actually the first episode after the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Very exciting.
What's the date on this, just out of curiosity?
January 19th.
Ah, shit. 2 weeks after my birthday, baby. All right.
Hey.
God.
So what has been going on since we last watched? So I guess the big thing I have to talk about first is Stone Cold Steve Austin. He is kind of the protagonist of the Attitude Era. I should probably go ahead and start with him, as he won the Royal Rumble. And as a reminder, winning the Royal Rumble means that you get a WWE Championship match at WrestleMania in the main event. So it's a pretty big deal. And this is Steve Austin's first win of the Royal Rumble.
Oh, wait. How long had he been around the company at this point?
He came in late 95.
Okay.
Maybe 96. I don't remember the exact date.
Respectable turnaround. All right.
Yeah, and so it was kind of a fun story, because basically the story is that Stone Cold made it pretty clear that he is going to kick everyone's ass. And so, all 29 other men. And so for the couple weeks leading up to the Rumble, he would just randomly show up throughout the show and beat people up. It was kind of hysterical. But it was also kind of fun to be like, oh, when's he gonna show up next? And so the roster naturally, decided to retaliate. There were multiple skits of the various groups of people in the locker room trying to find Stone Cold to preemptively attack him.
Look, man, the WWF has never been opposed to a little bit of backstage dirty work to get results. All right.
No, it was very fun, but
it's just part of the culture.
Yeah, but it didn't matter because Stone Cold won anyway.
Wily Steve.
And he won. Kind of another significant aspect is that the runner-up was The Rock. And so this was another one of those significant, before it became the rivalry times when Stone Cold and The Rock had an encounter.
So is this after this? This is after the whole belt skirmish thing.
Yeah.
The Rock is they're not already feuding at this point, aren't they already kind of?
No, the belt tossing in the river was actually kind of the end of that rivalry for the moment.
That's so weird.
It is a bit of a weird one, but at the moment, The Rock is still the Intercontinental Champion, which I'll get to what he's doing in a little bit. But Stone Cold is heading for the WWE title, so they're not really in the same lane anymore.
Oh, okay.
But it was kind of a nice moment to get to see The Rock and Stone Cold kind of duke it out a little bit at the very end.
Yeah, no, after a little event like what happened last time we were here, I imagine a bit of a fisticuffs would be kind of a therapeutic way to end things.
Yeah. So Stone Cold won the Rumble. Who's he gonna face? And that leads into kind of one of the bigger stories coming out of the Royal Rumble with Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. That was building to that when we last watched, because it was already known that The Undertaker was going to be Shawn Michaels' next challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And Shawn Michaels beat The Undertaker in a casket match. I believe I mentioned it last time, but as a reminder, it's basically a match where there's a bunch of coffins around the ring, and you win the match by locking your opponent into one of them.
Yep. Yeah, you've definitely you mentioned that before. The Undertaker special, yada yada yada.
It is an Undertaker special, and like also every time that the Undertaker seems to lose a casket match, it's because 10 other guys show up to beat him up. That is how the match ends. Of where Shawn Michaels, where Triple H brings out like a bunch of dudes in the back from the locker room. He brings out the New Age Outlaws. He brings out Los Boricuas, and they all gang up on the Undertaker. And inevitably, Kane shows up to help too, because he's and eventually, they're able to. Kane is the one who throws Undertaker in the casket, and Shawn Michaels is there to be able to opportunistically shut it and win.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice a pattern of the Undertaker getting ganged up on and curb stomped in the Attitude Era. That's kind of a weird place to take him, but I mean, if he gets results,
yeah, it's kind of it's there to show how like otherworldly powerful he is, especially with Shawn Michaels. Like Shawn Michaels at this point is 2-0 on the Undertaker, and has both times had the assistance of Kane to actually survive.
Okay.
Like there's a real through line of this story that for all of Shawn Michaels' bluster and talking about how he's the best and he's already beaten the Undertaker. Literally, if Kane didn't show up to fight the Undertaker himself, then Shawn would get destroyed.
Yeah, well, because Shawn Michaels is so much more talk than he is actual fucking talent. But that's just my 2 cents.
In kayfabe, definitely.
Yeah, I know he's actually like decently talented, but God.
Yeah. So I guess the only other significant thing to come out of the casket match is this is the match where Shawn Michaels' famous back injury happens. You know, at one point, Undertaker throws Shawn out of the ring, and his back kind of clips the side of the casket, and it ends up like rupturing a couple of discs in his back.
Oh shit!
And so. Basically, he's going to get through this storyline with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then he's out.
Wait, this is the point at which he retires?
Yeah, for the first time, yes.
Oh my God. I didn't realize it was like this early on.
Yes, his first retirement is in 98. And he and I'll talk more about it next time we do the Attitude Era because that will be after Shawn has already retired. But basically, like by that, he retires and then he doesn't come back for like 4 years due to a combination of both that back injury and also him being away from wrestling just kind of makes his drug addiction worse. His drug problems worse. And that's what truly keeps him out of it more than the back. And it's really not until he literally comes to Jesus that he is in a place where he can come back to wrestling.
Yeah, that I didn't realize that was all catalyzed like by a back injury. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like again, when I say he clips it, I mean he clips it. Like you can barely tell he even hits the casket.
Jesus Christ!
It's one of those things that you're like, if you didn't know that this was the moment, you probably wouldn't think it is.
The trajectory of this man's career. What the hell?
Yeah, so right, Shawn Michaels is going to be a lot less physically involved for the next few months.
Sure.
Because like they don't know how many more matches he's got in him, but so we need him to get to the one that we really need him to do.
Can't say I'm complaining.
Yeah, but so I did mention Kane showed up, so I guess I should talk about like the worst part about Shawn and Undertaker is 2 things. Is one, it felt very similar to the Hell in a Cell thing. Like it was a lot of like Undertaker uses spooky words to talk about the spooky match, and Shawn Michaels is huffing and puffing, but then whatever he does, Undertaker just kind of beats him up for it. It felt very similar, so it's kind of like this is boring. And plus, Undertaker is in a more interesting story with Kane right now.
Well, yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, so the kind of development of that is that the last couple of weeks actually has kind of seen almost an ability for them to work together. Kane, attacking every human in sight has he sowed and now he's reaping. But
Okay.
people are looking for revenge about it, and Undertaker has actually come to Kane's aid a few times at this point. And while Paul Bearer has sworn up and down that Kane is still angry at the Undertaker, and that the Undertaker is trying to poison his brother's mind. It is asking to the questions of like, well, are they going to fight or are they going to team up?
Oh my god. Wait, am I actually going to start finding The Undertaker compelling? Oh my god, please.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I want to like him. Because
the Royal Rumble is also a bit of a major turning point in the general relationship between Kane and The Undertaker. In that, I've mentioned that Undertaker has been very clear up to this point that he will not fight his brother. He doesn't want to disgrace his dead parents by fighting his brother. Kane's all about that life, though. And after locking Undertaker in the casket after the match, Shawn Michaels hightailed it out of there. Kane, in what is one of the most insane visuals you might ever see on a WWE pay-per-view. It ends where Kane douses the casket that the Undertaker is in gasoline and lights that thing on fire.
Oh shit! Oh, hey, that kind of harkens back to something that's going on in the modern era. That's cool.
It is, and I almost decided for tonight that we were going to also see the very end of the pay-per-view just so you could see the visual, but it is they do show the visual on this episode. So like,
yay!
Because you deserve to see it because it's pretty insane.
That sounds awesome.
And obviously, if I want to, explain away the magic of the scene, I can tell you, they set up the casket in a very specific spot on the stage.
Well, yeah, I mean, effects like that are pretty obvious as to how they like rig them, right?
But it is still insane to think, like in kayfabe at least, Undertaker was locked in there.
Yeah.
And Kane was just like, fuck it, I'm setting this thing on fire.
And that's a hell of a visual.
It is. And with Paul Bearer laughing in the background in it all.
Oh, yes.
In his great... So I don't believe this is the exact moment where Undertaker is like, fine, I'll fight you, Kane. But we're a lot closer to that moment now. The, immolation has come into the equation.
Yeah. Yeah. That would make me a little cranky, I admit.
Mm-hmm. So that's where that is. And then the next big thing I want to talk about, The Rock and the Nation of Domination. As I said, The Rock is Intercontinental Champion. He hasn't really had a solid storyline for that title. I mean, he had a match against Ken Shamrock at the Royal Rumble, but that wasn't a very well-developed story. Kind of the bigger story with The Rock right now is the continuing tensions with Farouk. The first beat to that is the week before the Rumble, the Nation of Domination got a new member. Mark Henry joined the Nation.
Oh, okay, I'm on board for this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool in its own right. But the other thing is that The Rock was explicitly the one who brought Mark into the Nation, and Farouk was not at all consulted about it.
Oh.
So Farouk is like, "What are you doing? Why are you adding people to the Nation without telling me?" And The Rock's all like, "Come on, man! I did it for you, Farouk. I did it for us. Come on, man." And so at the Royal Rumble, in the Royal Rumble match, it is every man for himself. You get that, but at the same time, when Farouk came into the match, he immediately attacked The Rock.
Oh.
He saw his opportunity to throw some hands at him, and he took it.
Well, yeah, sounds about right. Everything in this world is solved by fighting.
It is, but at the end of the day, the final three were The Rock, Stone Cold, and Farouk, and The Rock eliminated Farouk from the match.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So The nation under Farouk is fading away, and quickly. Farouk just doesn't quite know it yet, I think.
I'm kind of surprised Farouk is dense enough to not read the writing on the wall at this point.
Yeah. He doesn't really do anything about the fact that The Rock is clearly trying to power grab him. Like he doesn't.
Yeah.
Like I think if I had to guess, I think he just assumes that the other people in the nation are loyal enough to him that it's not a problem.
Well, Farouk, you know what they say about assuming.
That this coup isn't going to work because, Kama and D'Lo are on my side, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure he's doing a great job at explicitly checking in with them and making sure that he's accommodating toward them, so they remain feeling good to him, and that he's not just kind of assuming everything and letting it slide.
Because that would be bad and would probably lead to him getting thrown out of the nation.
That would be an unintelligent move, and I hope he's smarter than that.
Anyway, next tidbit is the tag team championship scene, which is still with the titles are still with the New Age Outlaws, and this is kind of weird in that their most recent world title, their tag team title matches with the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk, Legion of Doom, all that. It's kind of because that was an explicit callback to our last episode when them and DX kind of annihilated the LOD. The Royal Rumble was their first appearance back, and it was kind of supposed to be a revenge moment a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But the Outlaws have also kind of moved on from them. They don't really care anymore. Who they're really in a feud with right now is with Cactus Jack. They were terrorizing Mick Foley when he was in his Dude Love persona. But don't worry, Cactus Jack has an answer to this problem. And that answer is Terry Funk.
Terry Funk.
Terry Funk, yes, he is a legend in the wrestling business, both for being an absolute hardcore maniac. He's done some insane shit matches over in Japan, as well as being one of the early leaders of Extreme Championship Wrestling. He's also famous for never retiring. I'm pretty sure he's still actively wrestling, and he's in his mid-60s.
What the fuck?
But he's had so many retirement matches, I think people have lost count. But Terry Funk is a longtime friend and rival, to Mick Foley. So Cactus Jack brought him in to help deal with the problem. Except he's not going as Terry Funk, he's going as Chainsaw Charlie. Where he's showing up in overalls and a shirt and a red shirt and a stocking over his face and a chainsaw that he's running around with.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, it's acknowledged in story that this is Terry Funk. Mick Foley cuts a promo about it, and he's like, I don't know why Terry's going around calling himself Charlie and running around with a chainsaw, but, I just roll with it.
Okay. That seems like an on-brand thing for Mick Foley to be up to, though.
It is, Mr. Three Personalities, which I forgot to mention. That is one of the funny things about this Royal Rumble match in 1998. It was the match where all three Mick Foley personas were in the same match.
That's so interesting. How did they pull that off?
Basically, Mick Foley would get eliminated, and then he would run to the back and change costumes.
Oh, my God.
He first appeared as Cactus Jack at the very beginning of the match. Then about midway through, he shows up as Dude Love, and then near the end, he's Mankind.
I love Mick Foley.
No, Mick Foley is fantastic. So, next bit of business is I guess we got to talk about Owen Hart now, because I'm going to make myself sad. On our last episode, we had talked about Owen Hart had this fantastic promo where he's railing at Vince McMahon and how he's going to make Vince's life hell, and he's coming for Shawn Michaels, and none of that shit mattered. Not even a week. 1 week later, the story has already transitioned from being about Owen Hart fighting Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon to Owen Hart fighting Triple H.
Oh, no, not this.
Yep. Basically, they transitioned away from that, and it's all about him getting the European title back, and suddenly all of his aggression is going out at Triple H. Shawn Michaels is not involved anymore.
Well, sure. Yeah, okay.
It's a phenomenal waste of what was a really awesome story beat.
Yeah. And this is what, and because he ends up fucking up Triple H and then getting nothing after that, right?
Yeah, pretty much. He did actually get a WWE Championship match with Shawn Michaels on Raw, and it went about 5 minutes, and it ended when Triple H hit him with a crutch. The end.
No, come on.
That was the whole thing. It was great. And I guess he's also now kind of embroiled. I forgot to write this down in my notes to talk about, but I guess this is as good a place as any to talk about it. Right now, WWE is trying to do an NWA crossover. As a reminder, the NWA is the National Wrestling Alliance. It was basically the territory system before WWF went national. Basically, it was the predominant wrestling organization. All of the smaller regional companies came together to kind of coordinate business and all that, kind of have a set of champions that crosses the whole organization. But by this point, nobody gives a shit about the NWA. Like, it's a dead brand. It's a dead kind of brand. And for some reason, WWF at this time, probably because Jim Cornette, who was one of the prominent people in the NWA, was also on the writing staff at this point. And so this is absolutely a Jim Cornette idea. In fact, he's heavily involved in the storyline too.
Okay.
Where Jim Cornette is bringing in guys who are either from the NWA or would definitely have fit the mold of the NWA, which is old school Southern wrestling.
Yes.
And
we're in the wrestling business.
No, we're not. We're in the entertainment business. They don't belong. And they're showing up on TV, and they're talking about how Jim Cornette's talking about how he's going to bring real wrestling back, and blah blah blah. Nobody cares, and I barely do either. But they attacked Owen Hart at the Royal Rumble, so I guess this is a thing going forward. Whatever.
Okay.
I can't even pretend to care that much because it's not that interesting, and it's dumb to think about even in retrospect. They don't even they're not even using the NWA World Championship, the one that's existed since 1906 when Frank Hackenschmitz or whatever was the first champion. I shouldn't be that blasé about it, but I genuinely
I love it when you're I love it when you're that blasé about things.
The first champion was Orville Brown in 1948. My bad, I forgot. I'm thinking of when the NWA might have started. I'm forgetting when the first recognized world champion is. It's a whole different thing. Point being, they're not even using that title. They're using the NWA North American title as a proxy. And I imagine that's because I don't think they had the rights to the NWA World Championship at the time. So they're not even using the proper world title to make this kind of interesting.
Okay.
To use they're not using the oldest world title that still exists in wrestling.
Why? Okay, sure, whatever.
It's dumb, and we're moving on.
Yeah, welcome to 90s WWF. It happens.
We're moving on to Goldust. Let's talk about the artist formerly known as Goldust. Not on this episode, but I've had to sit through 4 weeks of him, so I'm telling you about him.
Yeah, you sent me some of those screenshots, and I don't like it.
No, so as I mentioned, during this period of time, they decided to change Goldust. Instead of being he's gay and that's why you should boo him, he's kinky and weird. He's weird because he's kinky, that's why you should boo him.
Yep.
But he's also doing stuff for the pure sake of shock value. For example, doing a match in blackface against a black wrestler. I don't think I need to say why that's bad. I feel like that's obvious. Also, not the last time WWE does blackface in 1998, but we're not going there.
Oh, okay. Jesus, God, why?
Oh, here's a fun exercise. Please take a guess at who else did blackface in 1998.
I see. My go-to would be saying Shawn Michaels, but if he's out of commission, I actually don't. Uh, please don't tell me it's Jerry Lawler.
No, but you're close.
Okay.
You were close on your first guess. It's the rest of D-Generation.
Oh, it's the rest of D-Generation X. Of course, it's the rest of D-Generation. Fucking God, I hate them.
They did that after Shawn Michaels retired. That's a whole thing. We'll get into it later in the story.
Okay.
Yes, the rest of DX does blackface because they're feuding with the Nation of Domination at the time.
What? Okay. Kill me.
Anyway,
please end it.
So Goldust, he does a blackface. He dresses up as a Christmas tree for the Christmas episode.
Okay.
He dresses up as the New Year's baby for a New Year's episode.
Okay.
Again, he's really being weird for the sake of being weird. And, you know, one wrestler, Big Van Vader, whose kind of thing is he's also massive, and he kicks people's asses. He's like feuding with Goldust, but there's not any real reason why he cares. There's not really any strong connection for why do you care? Goldust didn't do anything to you.
Yeah.
I guess it's just perhaps someone for Goldust to be, playing off of, as opposed to just kind of being weird.
I don't understand why they need to do all this weird shit with Goldust. I just I don't get it. It makes no sense. None of this is it.
I will say that there was one thing he did that I actually thought was amusing. Is Mark Marrow, I guess we'll transition to other stuff, to a last couple of things. Is Mark Marrow, he's still doing the storyline where his wife is sexually attractive, and his wife likes to sexualize herself, but he doesn't like it when her wife is
the potato sack thing, Jesus Christ.
Because other people find his wife sexy when she does that, and he's mad about it.
Yeah.
So, in the newest attempt to keep people from thinking his wife is sexy, during one of the matches, he introduces his wife, and it's Goldust, dressed as Sable.
What? Why? Why are? Oh God! I don't want to do too much editorializing in the front half, but can I just take a second to express my deep sympathies to Dustin Rhodes for the sheer ringer crucible of humiliation and degradation this poor man went through in his early career.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Okay, anyway.
Honestly, the craziest thing about it is how really committed he was to the whole thing. He was committed to make this work. Kind of a very famous story is around this period of time, actually, is that he went to Vince McMahon and was like, dude, you need to sell this angle. I'll get breast implants if I have to sell this storyline. And Vince was like, no, you're good.
What?
No need to go that far.
What? Okay.
I think it's honestly part of how Goldust has been able to endure, despite everything, is that he's always been very committed to making it work as best he could. And people have appreciated that.
Yeah, okay. I can understand that. I'm just glad he gets a lot more respect these days, because holy shit, his run in the 90s was not good.
Ooh. Speaking of not good things in the 90s, Gang Wars! It's still kind of there. It's not on this episode, but it's still just kind of there. They're not even doing stories with it anymore. It's just it is literally at this point been reduced to filler of we need to schedule some guys punching for a few minutes. What do we do?
There's a certain vindication I feel to like how much of a footnote the gang wars become. Like they tried to like Vince Russo's here trying to do this whole like edgy thing, and it just like amounted to nothing, and they have to implicitly admit that to their audience and be like, our big yikes thing just fucking flopped.
Like nobody even cares anymore.
Yup.
It's remembered as like the worst, one of the worst parts of the early Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Finally, our last point is in reference more to this episode, is the Mike Tyson situation. For the last few weeks, they've been hyping up Mike Tyson. He's going to be at the Royal Rumble. We even got Don fucking King on Raw hyping up Mike Tyson. So.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that last week. Yep.
Yeah, so he does show up at the Royal Rumble and he's there in a skybox watching the show. They cut to him every once in a while, and he famously, after the Royal Rumble win for Stone Cold, he goes, he's like celebrating, like, yeah, man, I love Cold Stone. He calls Cold Stone for a few
my favorite creamery.
Yes. Cold Stone, Austin Steve won the Royal Rumble.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that happened, but in addition, they're also they advertised that Mike Tyson is going to be here this week, and they're going to make a big announcement for WrestleMania regarding Mike Tyson. So at this point, it's known that Mike Tyson is going to be involved at WrestleMania, and I feel, and again, as I mentioned last week, it's kind of harkens back to a lot of what they were doing in their first WrestleManias in the mid '80s, getting Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T involved in the first WrestleMania to kind of generate buzz and interest in the mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
This time using Mike Tyson, who is a popular and controversial figure.
And yeah, right. I was going to say right now, very controversial.
Yes, this is when he is banned from boxing for biting a man's ear
bite.
It is. So it's a very controversial figure at this point in time, which is perfect for WWE's super edgy programming at the time. It's a match made in heaven, really.
Truly.
Yeah, so that is our show recap. I guess I could, if I wanted to, I could mention Jerry Lawler for a few minutes if I wanted to. But,
if I wanted to.
No. I mean, I guess I could. I could mention like the one line I sent you if you want.
Go for it.
Yeah. So we understand that Jerry Lawler, this is what he's doing at this point in time. He's being gross to women. Not to say it doesn't. Not to say that it like so much of it has happened that it just kind of doesn't register in my brain anymore. But it doesn't feel worth bringing up every time. Except this time. A couple weeks ago, he mentioned in his normal. He makes a joke about he has no problem being seen with younger women, except when he drops them off at school. That's which is a whole lot of yikes already. Except if you want to make this worse, and I will. In 1993, Jerry Lawler pretty famously had some legal trouble where he was accused of raping and sodomizing an underage teenage girl.
Yikes!
That went nowhere after the accuser recanted her statement, but that happened, and 4 years later, he's making that joke on commentary. And it's like, really?
I mean, I'm not surprised. That guy's as tactless as a fucking empty corkboard.
Yes, it's disgusting. And I think that's the perfect time to cut off our front half.
Sure.
Yeah, so we're gonna watch this episode of Monday Night Raw, and we'll see you guys in the back half.
Yeah.
And we are back. We have just finished our watch of the January 19th, 1998 episode of Monday Night Raw.
That was an interesting one. There was a lot going on. That was it all kind of like felt low key in its own way and all kind of very self-contained, but like there was some like kind of fun, interesting stuff happening throughout. Um, I this is kind of one of those episodes that feels like um it's just it's like there, and you can pop it on. There's just kind of a whole lot going on. You could jump in at any point and just be like, oh, okay, this is happening now. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty enjoyable watch overall.
Yeah, no. There were some. I mean, like it's one of those things. Like I've realized there have been a lot of episodes where I've said like, man, it feels like not really a whole lot happens here, and this in a way kind of felt like another one of those episodes. But I'm almost wondering if I need to kind of like reframe how I look at episodes like that in my mind, where it's like just because it doesn't have like some gigantic like overarching whatever that leads to like some big earth-shattering moment doesn't mean that it's not worth the watch. Like I've been spoiled on episodes like the pipe bomb promo and the Mark Henry fake out retirement and stuff like that. But this one, even though it kind of had the same vibes of other episodes where I've said it doesn't feel like a lot's happening here, I'm starting to respect more just like the you know the little self-contained things that are just kind of happening all over. That kind of all are their own thing that you can kind of jump on board whenever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think this episode did a little things for a lot of stuff. I don't really think any there one kind of major development.
I mean, there were a few kind of major developments.
Mm.
The two biggest being, well, I guess one of them is not even development. Two biggest being, Mike Tyson at the end, and then, um, and then the search for the Undertaker.
Oh my! How'd I accidentally put two different storylines going of like where the Undertaker is missing? How'd I pull that one off?
I love the I love the I love like the running pattern here of like, why are we just always looking for the Undertaker?
Like every like, ugh. At least we're not. At least I don't have to listen to like construction workers talking about seeing the Undertaker in a 6-foot deep ditch or something.
That's fair.
And I just instead get to watch DX kind of like sneak up on a hearse and pull it open, and a bunch of like women are in there.
What was the point of that?
I don't know.
Okay. The best. Okay, so for audiences, for audience's benefit, there was this hearse that like pulled up, and fucking Degeneration X went to like check it out, and like they were like teasing it like throughout a decent part of the first half of the episode, and Degen X goes to check it out, and like they're like, oh, it's gonna be the Undertaker, and they open it up, and just all these like women in the back of this mysterious hearse
in party dresses, all like as if it's like the back of like a limo,
and also reacting as if they were like groupies specifically meant for Degeneration X.
Yeah.
Which, like, in that case, why wouldn't they have been clued in on this? What was the point of any of this? I don't understand.
I know. Honestly, my favorite part was when, like, they drag Shawn and Triple H in with them, and then, like, Chyna's still hanging out outside. She has this look of, like, oh my god, these idiots again. And she just shuts the door.
I gotta say, God, once again, my favorite part of this episode was Degeneration X, and by extension Shawn Michael. And I'm like, man, he's really like less insufferable when he's tempered by a group around him to like kind of take some of the spotlight off his dumbass, and also like when it's played more for laughs and not like he's someone to be taken remotely seriously.
Yeah, so Shawn Michaels' whole bit for this whole episode is kind of like bragging about having beaten the Undertaker,
even though it was Kane that like actually did that. Which I just want to point out, they say something about that at one point. They like Degeneration X brags that they took out the Undertaker,
and then Jim Ross is like, "That was all Kane."
That was Kane. Like literally, the announcers rebuked it in real time.
Yeah.
they pull it off in all these really funny ways. That was
Yeah,
just kind of this entertaining thing throughout the whole episode.
yeah, it was. It starts with them. They're in their locker room, kind of bragging about it. But then they're gonna go hunt for the Undertaker. That has those skits weren't that great, but it does lead to the funny in a way that is like, why this doesn't make sense kind of way with the hearse.
I will say, I'm just realizing something now. Because this is kind of like slightly going off topic, but I was thinking about what I said just a second ago about the this episode feeling not as like momentous as some others we've watched, and I was thinking that's kind of funny because there is kind of like this iconic moment at the end, kind of quickly switching gears to the Mike Tyson thing where we have like just utter chaos as Stone Cold Steve Austin and his giant ass posse goes off in the middle of a promo with Vince McMahon, Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson's giant ass posse, and they get in a giant fight, and it's a whole thing. And I'm like, that should feel like a much more momentous occasion than it is. Why doesn't it? And I realized just now that's because the time that should have been spent in the episode, like building up to that moment, was instead D-Generation X going off about the Undertaker. They were building up to the entirely wrong climax.
Yeah, DX gets a lot of time to do this, especially with their kind of like their climax, which is at the beginning of the second hour, where they come out with a barbecue.
Well, okay. Well, first they come out
the host thing.
Well, no. But Shawn Michaels coming out first.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like, they tease that it's the Undertaker. And nope, it's actually Shawn Michaels.
They lower him down from the ceiling, like if you like for those of you who've seen the SpongeBob movie, it's like the SpongeBob hanging from the wires sort of deal. They like lower him down from the ceiling, and they're like, "Oh shit, it's the Undertaker!" And then like he pulls off like a wig and turns around and starts taking off the Undertaker clothes, and it's fucking Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, so he does that, and then Triple H and China come out with a barbecue and a bag of barbecue stuff, including like tongs, and they got little chef's hats. Triple H wears a shirt that says "Suck the Cook," but the U is in "suck" is censored out,
which doesn't even make sense in a way. Like the joke doesn't quite land.
No, it doesn't, because it's like, I get it. I know what it's one letter away from, but also...
But then why are we censoring the U?
Like, yeah, you don't censor out the right part to make it. You don't censor out the right part to kind of make the joke.
Yeah, exactly. It's really funny.
Yeah, so, but then they first do a little bit of penis-related comedy, as you do in D-Generation X, where
with a probably transphobic joke regarding China.
A little bit. It does play a little bit into the misgendering of China, because she's a very muscular woman, and if it wasn't DX, like if it was anyone other than DX, I would definitely assume in kayfabe it's supposed to be a transphobic joke. I think this one is just kind of like incidentally.
Okay. So much better.
Yeah, I don't think Triple H or Shawn Michaels in character are asses about that. The way that other characters who are supposed to be baby faces are, but not the time for that. Yeah. But like basically the joke is that like Shawn and Triple H pull out these little hot dogs and they're like, "We got real jumbo weenies, but hey, so what you're bringing to the party, girl?" And China brings out a truly gigantic sausage.
It was so big.
It was obnoxiously large.
And Shawn Michaels spends the rest of the skit like playing around with it. He stuffs it in his pants at one point.
Yeah, he seriously
waving it around
in his pants, and like otherwise he's dicking off with it when Triple H is talking.
Dicking off.
Shawn Michaels also they brought marshmallows too, and Shawn Michaels does a thing where he takes a kebab and he puts a marshmallow, a hot dog, and a marshmallow there, so it looks like,
Oh my god! And like, oh my god, there's like so much to talk about. Like we don't really have time to like talk about all the specifics of what goes down in like all of these things.
Triple H takes like 5 minutes to hit on the random women in the crowd.
I know they chuck the marshmallows into the crowd at one point.
No, but basically but the point is kind of reiterating what they've been doing all night and the barbecue specifically was a joke about how the Undertaker was lit on fire. So they're like, how do you like they put the Undertaker clothes on the barbecue and they're like, how do you like your Undertaker? Rare, medium, or well done?
I love to that in that barbecue segment, they were also kind of able to kill two birds with one stone because they spent a lot of it making Undertaker jokes, but then it kind of shifted Triple H clowning on Owen Hart.
Yeah, and then Shawn Michaels talks about Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's a lot going on, and that's why I feel like the skit runs a little too long. But part of that is because they cover a lot of ground,
which I appreciate. And I honestly wish this episode would have ended to a payoff to all that rather than the Mike Tyson thing, because they treated they treated this as the episode spanning arc of D-Generation X fucking around. And you're waiting for them to fuck around and find out, but they never find out. They never they don't discover anything related to the Undertaker.
The Undertaker doesn't show up.
And the Owen Hart and Stone Cold things are getting tabled for future episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, damn, why aren't we I guess it would be kind of cheap to only a week later or whatever bring back Undertaker, but why are we spending the whole episode focusing on this when that's not what we're gonna end with? Either do this series of skits and then end with an Undertaker related climax, or cut these out, save them for a different week, and spend the entire episode building up better to Mike Tyson rather than just every once in a while being oh, is Mike Tyson here? Oh, Mike Tyson's in the building now. Oh, we got Tyson.
Yeah, I guess we should go ahead and kind of point to the other major the episode's climax is that so basically the whole the build up is all about oh shit, Mike Tyson, he's here at Raw, and for the first hour and 45 minutes of this, they do a thing where they show him coming in the building, and then he just kind of has random NPC interactions with most of the rest of the locker room. He talks with the Nation of Domination, and they try to recruit him, or he talks with Cactus Jack, and Cactus Jack offers to let him hit him with a barbed wire bat.
He does talk to D-Gen X at one point.
Yeah, he talks to DX and compares biceps with China, and they're fine, but they're not anything significant. And then the last few minutes of the episode is him coming to the ring and going for the big announcement of what he's going to do at WrestleMania. Vince McMahon is there, but it is immediately interrupted by Stone Cold showing up, because Stone Cold apparently takes offense to Mike Tyson's nickname, the baddest man on the planet, because in Stone Cold's words, he is the toughest SOB in the world.
Yeah, Stone Cold's just kind of pissed that Tyson's here.
Yeah, he is, and so he picks a fight with Mike Tyson. It kind of culminates with Stone Cold flips him the double bird. So Mike Tyson shoves Steve Austin, and then suddenly Steve Austin's ready to go. and thankfully they have large groups to pull them apart.
What gigantic groups. This was another episode that loved its messy endings, which I guess in a way this was built up to, and that every other major match ended with some sort of messy ending. So of course the final bit of the episode had to end with the messiest ending.
Yeah, kind of does. I think the least messy ending is the New Age Outlaws match.
Yeah. And yeah, no, that was the only clean ending, I think. All the others were
relatively speaking, they still won by hitting a guy with a brick.
Yeah, well. But it wasn't people storming the arena.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
But yeah, still, and it's kind of interesting how relatively it's just one of those it's one of those moments that doesn't in by itself seem super important. It doesn't always get framed as super important, but this is obviously a superly important historical moment.
Yeah.
That's why I picked this episode. This is the episode where Stone Cold tries to pick a fight with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
That was a headline grab. They weren't kidding. That was a headline grabbing kind of a moment.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it got them attention.
I appreciate what they were going for, and I'm sure in the context of the day, if you're watching it back then, that was freaking huge, and I can certainly appreciate that. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of funny, analyzing it now from a storytelling perspective of why weren't you focusing on this for more of the episode? Because because like they kind of make reference to it, but Stone Cold being pissed about Tyson being there isn't really built up to in any sort of meaningful way. He's just kind of like you come onto my turf, and I gotta kick your ass.
Yeah, they save Stone Cold for the end, I think, as kind of like to kind of build that up, is because they spend just as much time advertising that Stone Cold will appear as they do that Mike Tyson will appear.
Yeah. It's like what the inevitable conclusion of this is going to be.
Right, but that also means that like from a story analysis, they don't like Stone Cold just kind of shows up for no reason, there's no build up to Stone Cold showing up.
Yeah, I know.
In terms of like why is he picking a fight with Austin?
Yeah, which again, I guess in the context of the day, you didn't need to do that as much.
And if I want to be a bit of a snarky asshole about it, what was Stone Cold scheduled to do? Like, if you're advertising he is still to come, but he isn't in kayfabe supposed to show up when Mike Tyson does, what was he supposed to do?
I just love the fact that WWF, WWE has no internal consistency about stuff like this. Where they'll build up their schedule. If you think about it, the in kayfabe schedule makes no fucking sense.
No, it's absolute mess.
I know it's a giant meme for us at this point to talk about this on this show, but it just still cracks me up, like how unconnected everything kind of is, like how sloppy in kayfabe this organization's run, if you really think about it.
Yeah, Vince McMahon is terrible at putting these shows together.
No, he just gets really lucky week after week. He's just like, if I sit here and let these clowns come out with microphones, something will happen. I can have something nice fall into my lap.
Yep. WWE authority figures just kind of let stuff fall into their laps.
These episodes schedule themselves.
Yeah, which Vince does have a small part to play in this episode, and when his absolutely cartoony, like while the fight's breaking up, he yells at Stone Cold, "You ruined it! You ruined it, damn it!" He doesn't explain what it is, but he's like, "You ruined it, damn it!"
I assume we're supposed to use context clues to say it's his relationship to Mike Tyson.
Yeah, in story, it's kind of supposed to be like Vince thinks that like this little shit show is basically like put Mike Tyson off to being in the WWF.
Which, like, I wouldn't blame him.
I wouldn't blame him. It doesn't, but you know, I wouldn't blame him. But like now that we know the story, it feels weird for him to be like, "You ruined it," and it's like, well, he didn't really ruin anything. If anything, I think Mike Tyson got more excited to be here.
I was gonna say for as controversial a figure as he was / is. It is kind of adorable how like excited Tyson seems to be to be here. He seems like so into it. He's like, yeah, I get to branch out and do something new. This is great.
Yeah, and he seems like, and I don't want to gatekeep celebrities who show up and who aren't like real wrestling fans. I don't really care about that, but I do appreciate that Mike Tyson at least sounded like he was a legitimate fan, both in terms of like his enthusiasm, and then when like Vince is like, "Who's your favorite wrestler?" He names Bruno Sammartino and Nikolai Volkov, who are both wrestlers who haven't been in the WWE for at least like a couple of decades. Mm-hmm. So it fits this timeline of like he loved it as a kid.
As a kid, yeah.
Yeah, like those are names that like he would have been familiar with them if he was watching the WWF in like in the 60s and 70s when he was a younger person. Like, so that fits, and like I thought that was neat. Like he doesn't name anybody who like is currently wrestling.
Yeah, no, which like, you know, I'd like to think like they're like being truthful here and saying like, you know, his relationship to WWE like or WWF prior to this. But like even if they're not, I have respect for the fact that he's being like such a professional about this. He's like he's here to he's playing the part well, and for a guy who's never really stepped into WWE before, whose prior, you know, sports entertainment experience does not involve this level of like acting and performative whatever. He's jumping right into kind of being in character and he feels like a natural fit already, which I really respect. You know, from the guy, it kind of indicates, you know, solid work ethic on his part, which is, you know, nice turnaround from him, you know, biting someone's fucking ear.
Yeah, like I do appreciate like I think Mike Tyson does a really good job both in this and in the storyline going forward. I think he does he's really engaging character in his own right.
Yeah,
And he
no.
does feel like a natural fit to what they're doing here.
And I mean, Stone Cold is a really good like wrestler to pair him up with. Like, you got your two big superstars, kind of obviously. But also like, the way that they set up this feud and the fact that Stone Cold's pissed that he's just waltzing in here and currying favor with McMahon or whatever. It does kind of still fit with Stone Cold's character and makes for an interesting clash. It doesn't feel like bland. Just we're chucking these two people together because they're famous.
Yeah, and it's just like this is literally the night after Stone Cold Steve Austin won the Royal Rumble. So like, if anything, this should be his big night, and then like it's all everyone's talking about is Mike Tyson.
Yeah, which again, I wish they'd built that up more because I wanted to have like more. And again, I'm no pun intended. I'm wrestling with this because I understand that to an extent. Like I'm missing the context of being a fan in this era where this would probably be a lot more intuitive to me. But again, if WWE at the same time wants to have the philosophy of treat every show like it's someone's first, and they like have no real build up to this being the kind of headliner of the show, aside from just a bunch of like announcements that like these two guys are going to show up at some point. I wish there were I wish there were more in this episode to cover than just those last kind of like 7 minutes when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, I think you could have absolutely done a bit more of a clear like through line through the story through the night, and kind of made it make more narrative, kind of be more engaging narratively, and not just like the one moment that happens. But then again, I guess all you needed was the moment.
Yeah, that's fair.
For as much as we're like nitpicky trying to do some writing analysis here, didn't really matter.
Yeah.
They got their moment and everyone ate it up.
And yeah, and I respect that, and they got their headlines out of it, and cool enough. It's just me, being a nerd and griping or whatever. But
yeah,
cool moment in and of itself. And again, I don't mind that like the time that in a way should have been filled with build up to that was filled with D-Gen X being a bunch of clowns. That was fun too. But kind of like going to all the stuff that happened in the middle of it. This was such an interesting episode, and it's another one of those where the matches felt so secondary to what was going on, like kind of behind the scenes, as it were.
If any of them took longer than 5 minutes, I'd be surprised.
I don't think any of them did. All of the matches were over. Well, honestly, the longest one felt like the Godwins versus New Age Outlaws.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can do a quick Google here and see if I can see something that lets me know what the match links are. Can't guarantee I'm going to find it.
Okay. In the meantime. Oh.
Okay. Yes, got it. All right. So the matches. Chain, Skull, and 8-Ball, the Disciples of Apocalypse. They fought the Nation of Domination to a double disqualification in 4 minutes and 41 seconds. Mark Marrow beat Tom Brandy in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I completely forgot that match happened.
Oh, God.
I was trying to think through the matches, and I didn't even remember it.
I'd forget if I hadn't taken a note of it.
Yeah. The Quebecers beat Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie by DQ in 3 minutes, 16 seconds. Jeff Jarrett beat Bradshaw to retain the NWA North American Heavyweight Championship in 3 minutes, 41 seconds. Owen Hart, Taka Michinoku, and the Headbangers beat Los Boricuas in 3 minutes and 1 second. The Rock beat Ahmed Johnson for the Intercontinental Championship in 2 minutes, 43 seconds. And then the New Age Outlaws beat the Godwins for the WWF Tag Team Championships in 4 minutes, 53 seconds. So that was actually the longest match on the show.
That was the longest. That one was the longest, which is kind of a shame because that was like one of the least interesting ones visually.
That was probably one of the least engaging matches on the whole show.
Yeah, no, which like there were some interesting parts of it again, like New Age Outlaws. They like dressed up to mock the Godwins, and like they had a stuffed pig that they'd stuffed a fucking brick inside.
Yeah, and they used that to win the match.
But like it was kind of like it was just kind of a bit of brutalism from the Godwins and the New Age Outlaws, just kind of being standard in how they fought. So it's kind of unfortunate when the other matches, the really short ones, were the ones with the most potential to be really engaging. I mean, Rock versus Ahmed Johnson. That I mean, what we got of it was a lot of fun. Partially because we had fucking Mark Henry coming out to be Mark Henry about it in the middle of the match, which is to say he came out and was just kind of wrecking shit in the background to help out his buddy.
Yeah, and I want to say that, like, I don't know if you could say that this is like real development in the Nation of Domination's plot, but I do see there's a kind of an interesting subtlety here in that, like, there's two matches with the Nation, and you have Farouk, Kama, and D'Lo, who are kind of like the core of the Nation of Domination as we know them. And then the other match was The Rock, who is the new guy and almost like an interloper, and Mark Henry, the guy The Rock brought in.
Yeah.
So the battle lines have almost been drawn.
I mean, for as much as the Nation of Domination kind of has like nothing to do anymore with the race war, they are finding their own ways to still kind of stay story relevant. But again, that was like the shortest match, and like, why? That's a waste of your Rock. That's a waste of your Ahmed Johnson. It was cool to have Mark Henry there, but in a way, it's then by extension a waste of your Mark Henry.
Yeah, like it was also the story beats are literally the same as what they do at the end of the DOA Nation match. It goes to a double DQ. Everyone be punching. The Rock and Mark Henry show up late to help out, and then Ken Shamrock and Ahmed Johnson run down to help to even the odds, and then basically the Rock Ahmed Johnson match ends the exact same way, but without the DOA or the rest of the Nation.
Yeah,
so it ends in a 2-on-2 fight as opposed to a 5-on-5, but it hits the exact same story beats twice.
I will say I do appreciate how mad the Shamrock looked during that match.
Oh no, Shamrock is an absolute expert at looking like a crazed, angry maniac.
He was going off, dude. It was hysterical. Yeah, which like it's just so interesting, like how sometimes some of these episodes where like you wouldn't think this was a fucking fighting show with how like little they give a shit about some of their fights. This is one of them where like, man, you have a lot of interesting stuff kind of going for you here with all these matches set up, and you do so little with them. The other really egregious example being Owen Hart, Taka Michinoku headbangers versus Los Boricuas.
I literally don't even know why that match exists. Like,
me neither.
Like, it literally Owen, Taka, and the Headbangers haven't been a group. Like, it's not like they've been friends before.
Do they have anything to do with Los Boricuas?
Not really. They have the fucking honky tonk man on commentary.
For some reason,
which as I pointed out on the broadcast, he's like third degree away, a third degree rivalry with Taka Michinoku, because Taka Michinoku is kind of in an eternal feud with Brian Christopher over the light heavyweight championship, which Brian Christopher is Jerry Lawler's son, so Jerry Lawler is frequently fighting with Taka Michinoku. And the Honky Tonk Man is Jerry Lawler's cousin, so he's kind of here just to disparage Taka.
See, Austin called it third degree. I joked with that family tie. It's third degree once removed.
Hey.
Yeah, but like, it's a shame too, because like, why the fuck are the Headbangers here?
Great question.
They did nothing. Second of all, God, this really is the beginning of the end for Owen Hart. Like really, we're just chucking him in there in like a random ass like 4-on-4 team up. And at the end, he does a great job kind of promoting about like, I'm coming for you next, Triple H. But again, we know with our magical foresight of existing fucking 24, 25 years later, or 23 years later, Jesus, 98. I should.
Yep.
we know with the magical force that existing 23 years later that this just like spirals out.
And it's already spiraling from
It's
what we
already
first have.
spiraling.
Like, we're already going down from like Shawn Michaels in the WWF Championship to Triple H and the European Championship.
Which, like I said, Hart does a good job at selling the serious, like still making it feel like serious and legit. But it's just sad knowing that it spirals out. And then poor Taka is of this era one of the WWF's single most physically talented performers ever. And he's given fuck all to do in this. Like the little time he is in the ring, he does get to show off, but it's depressingly little.
Yeah, WWE just straight up didn't give a fuck about the light heavyweight championship. They introduced it because over in WCW land, WCW was getting critically rave reviews for their cruiserweight division. That was legitimately kind of like groundbreaking stuff in terms of like what you could do athletically in a wrestling ring in America. Basically, the WCW formula was for that division was take all the best guys you can find in Mexico and all the best guys you can find in Japan and just let them go. And it worked. And so the light heavyweight division almost felt like a weird attempt at combating that, except they only ever had two people in that division regularly, Taka Michinoku and Brian Christopher. That's it.
Which, like, the thing that cracks me up, and this is kind of, I guess, tangenty, but kind of while we're on the subject, the thing that cracks me up about stuff like this, and also kind of tangentially the Owen Hart thing, is Vince McMahon's propensity for very selective eye for potential, because in some respects he knows when to grab an opportunity by the balls and squeeze. Like this Mike Tyson thing, he got a great idea and he lapped it up and it worked out well for him. But at the same time, you have things like you like talking in between the new generation through Attitude Era. You have things like how he treated the Hart Foundation with Bret Hart being his kind of like default for when his like neo Hulk Hogan's always ended up failing, instead of just going, oh wait, Bret Hart's awesome and everybody loves him, so we should just make him our new kind of like main character, to now Owen Hart getting screwed over in a zillion different ways because we feel like sucking Shawn Michaels' dick more, I guess, to Taka Michinoku, again, one of his single most talented wrestlers, if not his most talented wrestler of this era, being there, getting to show off all this awesome stuff, and Vince doing barely jack with him. It's because like sometimes he's able to recognize that a thing's there and really go for it. Sometimes he throws a thing in there and it's so clearly really, really good, but he just kind of ignores that it exists, and the writers ignore that it exists. And it leads to these really disappointing things of man, we're presented with these really tantalizing new things, new ideas, new visuals, new opportunities, what have you, and just nothing comes of them because for some reason the writers and Vince don't recognize how much potential lies in there, and instead they kind of want to keep running with their safe usual formula, and it's so frustrating to watch.
Yes, it is. Yes, I am very familiar with this concept. But yeah, and like to kind of go back to the Tonka thing, like I'm not saying WCW's cruiserweight division wasn't perfect in that it kind of ran to a similar problem of like they created this glass ceiling for the cruiserweights of like, okay, you can go out there and like be athletically awesome or whatever, but you're never like gonna be like a top star. Like that's reserved for the Hulk Hogans of the world, brother. But at least they got a spotlight of some kind. Taka Michinoku doesn't even really get that,
which is so annoying. And the worst part is that the way he gets a spotlight is through the lens of Jerry fucking Lawler.
Yes, like his greatest rival here is Jerry Lawler and his dipshit
and his dipshit fail son. Was like what disrespect, dude. Which, oh god, I it's so sad to watch, and I'm glad that Taka went on to have a fruitful like career outside of this. But Jesus Christ, how can Vince on one hand be able to tap so much potential out of something that just kind of like, you know, vaguely presents himself, and he's able to like expand on it greatly, but then other things are so clearly gift wrapped for him to like to make something extraordinary out of, to mold into what could be like era defining stars and moments, but instead he's just kind of like, oh, that's a thing, here you go, I'm not going to pay attention to it, bye.
I don't know if I could understand the mind of Vince McMahon on some occasions.
Yeah, true.
That would
True.
be great.
I mean, yeah.
We're kind of working through the match. I guess we keep working through the matches, or we could talk about Kane. I think it's one or the other.
Oh yeah, we should definitely touch on Kane.
Okay, so kind of the show opens with the first fake out of The Undertaker, where first Paul Bearer comes out and gives this very lengthy
10-minute monologue
about that basically explains what happened. It explains the story of the and what happened at the pay-per-view.
It drags a little bit, but I appreciate the continuity.
Yeah, basically explaining that like all of these little bits where Kane and The Undertaker were seemingly get along. Haha, that was all to lull Undertaker in a false sense of security. It was all part of the plan.
Whoops-a-doodle.
And then they wheel out, and then we get the Undertaker entrance where the Druids wheel out the casket the Undertaker was in. Ostensibly, it's The Undertaker. Nope, it's Kane. Kane pops out.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, yeah, they do the Undertaker entrance fake out twice.
Yeah, which like again, why are you gonna do that if you don't pay it off at the end of the episode? I don't want to like.
Yeah, the Undertaker doesn't show up.
Yeah, like I get not wanting to blow your load too early, like right after you kill them off, but why are we like making this such a focus of the episode? It feels empty to just kind of like leave it at that.
I feel like if you do it once with Kane, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you have to do it again with Shawn Michaels. It feels like you should have more of a payoff at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because it again comes back a third time with the Shawn Michaels like pretending to be the Undertaker thing.
I forgot about the hearse. I wasn't really even considering the hearse fake out, but yeah, that's there too. So like, you just keep doing these fake outs about the Undertaker with no payoff, as opposed to if you just do it like one time, it wouldn't be a problem.
Which, wait a minute, I just realized something. What the hell was D-Generation X pointing at in the locker room if it wasn't the Undertaker? Did they ever explain that?
Oh, I frickin' forgot about that. No, okay, so the first half, the end of the first half has a cliffhanger where like they're just chatting in the locker room, and suddenly they like point up at a thing that it is in our point of view, so we can't see it, and then the lights go out, which is again, it's implied that's the Undertaker. Both because they're pointing up, so Undertaker's tall, and the lights go out, but then then we just go straight to the gag of Shawn Michaels portraying the Undertaker and the barbecue,
which like they never like maybe it was like pre-planned on D-Gen X's part to like fuck with the audience.
That feels too complicated for them, to be honest.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think they're smart enough to do that.
Like even if they are, that's not their style. Their style is like pointing at their dicks. They're not doing these like
they're not cerebral.
They're not doing these complicated fake outs.
Well, apparently they are, because we have Shawn Michaels dressed up as the Undertaker lowering from the fucking ceiling. But like, what? It just doesn't make sense. Like if again, it's one of those like things that like if you think about it in kayfabe for more than 2 seconds, it's Schrodinger's kayfabe. It exists like kayfabe is there, but also like it in order for it to like actually function with how it's written half the time, you have to like understand the meta narrative.
Yeah, no, it just does not. Thanks, Vince Russo, which by the way, he's on this episode.
He was. That was a weird little promo.
We get to see one of his advertisements. I've never really explained. I've never explained his backstory fully, but he basically got his start in the WWF as the editor-in-chief of WWF magazine, and then kind of like kind of worked his way up from there into being like the head writer. And so like he appears in this commercial where it's in like this black and white, like they're doing all these camera cuts. It's supposed to look cool, man. And he's in his like Vic Venom, which is his pseudonym for when he was working as the editor-in-chief.
Mm-hmm. Which two things about this. First of all, of fucking course he made his pseudonym Vic Goddamn Venom.
Yeah,
like name something that's more on brand for Vince Russo. I'll wait. But also like when he popped up and Austin pointed out like, hey, that's Vince Russo, I had two reactions. One, that's not like what I anticipated Vince Russo to look like, because like he's got like slick back hair and this kind of like scruffy like beard, and he's wearing shades and shit, and like I don't know what my mental image of Vince Russo was, but it wasn't like this guy who LARPs as an actual like badass. But like I imagine like a particularly devious suit, right?
Oh god, no! I can't even imagine Vince Russo wearing a suit. Jeez.
Yeah, no.
Just trying to imagine doesn't work.
I was thinking like, you know, he's in the writers' room, so he's like a corporate, you know, he's like a corporate whatever. But he's particularly devious and a particularly like good writer, so he's got kind of got this like, you know, mwahaha internal dark side that he brings out for his writing. But no, here he's just like LARPing as a total like, you know, Neo from Matrix edgelord, which like after I made the first observation of that's not what I pictured him to look like, my second observation was, but also that's really fitting for Vince Russo considering his writing.
Yeah, he I think it fits, but I think we've hit the Kane's. I think we've hit all the majorist character beats. I guess.
Yeah, I know. Well, because like the sad thing about the Kane stuff is like he doesn't get like much to do on this episode for like, because like damn, I just want it's I say sad because it's sad for me because I always want reasons to talk about Kane, and I don't really have much to talk about here. He just kind of shows up. And it's cool.
No, they're kind of their part in all this was kind of a little perfunctory. It was kind of just like, all right, we're gonna
remind the audience that like this is what's going on and stuff.
Yeah, and then that's that
with no payoff. But like all the other stuff again, it's all like kind of like smaller and self-contained. But there were fun things to each of them to an extent. You know, like pretty much every fight ending with a messy ending was all kind of like 90s chaos, attitude era, extreme.
I think the most straight up. I retract what I said earlier. The most straight up match was Mark Marrow and Tom Brandi, which had no shenanigans.
That was well, we had Sable kind of being shenanigan-y on the side, but like
but like that match is as I made it.
It was the most above board.
As I made a joke to David, this time period, Mark Marrow's greatest rival is Tom Brandi, and that is a condemnation if I've ever seen one.
Because Tom Brandi's just like this weird random jobber that for some reason gets like major story beats. Sometimes.
Yeah, he has never. I don't think he ever has a story. I don't think he has ever has a storyline before or after this. None that I can remember.
Yeah. But like
him being like the great defender of Sable's sexuality and ability to show off her body as she pleases.
Mark Marrow, the observation I made to Austin while we were watching this about Mark Marrow is like, it's like with Mark Marrow, they took one of like Randy Savage's defining character traits and decided, hey, what if we just turn this into a whole character and see how it works? And it just does not. Like, it's entertaining in just like the utter chaos of him constantly trying to like slut shame Sable
and the many ways he tries.
Yeah, and the many ways he tries, and the many ways Sable's like, no, fuck you.
Like he definitely doesn't get repetitive in his attempts to like to pull this off.
I will give him credit. Unique visual gags every time. Yep. But it's so one note, and it's just like, why are we insisting that this is a thing that people need to watch?
And it goes the same way every time. It's not like we're having a great payoff to Sable. This payoff, the large payoff of her standing up to him is coming, but like every single week it plays out the same way. Of like he does a thing. and he it either costs him as a wrestler, like he ended up losing matches because of it, or his wife manages to circumvent it anyway.
And that's the thing. His main character conflict is so self-contained that he feels detached from everything else going around him, to the point where it just feels like one of the writers just had some sort of weird sexual neurosis that he needed to like get out there by forcing an audience to watch like watch a dramatized version of the thing go down every week in order for him to feel better about it.
And like he does get heat in the way that, like, of course the audience is going to boo him because he's making the hot woman go away. But like they never like parlay that into anything. Like, this is going to keep building until eventually Sable beats him up, and then after that it just kind of goes kerplunk after she leaves him and also kicks his ass.
Yeah.
So it's not like all the fact that you can get him to get booed so easily is building to anything.
Yeah, no.
It's self-contained, like you said.
He feels disconnected, and it's just like, again, which writer just like is venting indirectly through the character of Mark Amaro? Who is he supposed to represent? Because this has nothing to do with anything else going around him. So like, yeah, that's a thing. At the very least, hey, at least it takes some of the focus off Lawler being gross to women. So sure.
Yeah. And then we had the Quebecers, which, as I mentioned to David, I can't even believe they were on this episode. I didn't even remember they made this comeback.
Yeah, no, the Quebecers did not were not at all what I pictured them to be when Austin described them New Generation.
To be fair, they look completely different.
But like, I don't know, but like the way I imagine them, like, you know, I imagine these like, you know, these uppity, decked out, you know, French pricks that have like.
I think in the new generation they kind of wear these like quasi Mountie outfits, and I think and you have Johnny Polo, who dresses exactly like a guy who sounds like his name is Johnny Polo, and I think that plays a lot more into what you're thinking of. Whereas in this episode they're wearing like tank tops and sweatpants,
and they look like they honestly, to me, they almost look like a discount Heart Foundation in a way. Mm-hmm. Just like less everything. You know, can we have Heart Foundation, Mom? No, we have Heart Foundation at home.
The Heart Foundation home, the Quebecers.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like similar because they kind of have the similar kind of like long blonde hair or whatever.
And they get a match with Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, which were far
more interesting to watch and deserved a far better match than with the random ass slumming at Quebecers.
Yeah, I don't even understand this because like I don't even know if the Quebecers ever come back. I am fairly certain they do not have a lengthy storyline with Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, which makes it weird that it kind of seems like they should, based on the way they wrote this match, where like the match ends because Cactus Jack tries to interfere to help out Charlie. And eventually the ref is like, no, dude, there are rules. You can't just jump in the match whenever you want. And so Cactus Jack is like, fuck that. And he like chokes out the ref.
The ref goes down and it's awesome.
And so that obviously leads to the match being thrown out. And then there's almost like an extended brawl over this.
Yeah, I know. The more refs show up and they keep fighting, and it's a lot of fun until eventually was it Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie that left?
Cactus Jack brought out his baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, and that
and Quebecers like, we're out.
Like, we ain't paid enough for this. We're leaving.
Yeah, you better walk away. Yeah, no, but like it's the thing that's fun for me there is like Mick Foley is obviously hugely entertaining. There's a reason he has like the reputation he does, and there's a reason he's as like well liked as he is. He's hugely entertaining, and Chainsaw Charlie was kind of a fun addition to his act that matches his crazy. Honestly, in a way, I don't want to like be too forced or anything, but like Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie here almost feel like a proto Brody Lee and who's the other guy?
Eric Rowan.
Eric Rowan, yeah. They almost feel like a proto Brody Lee and Eric Rowan, like a little more off the rails than they were, but kind of that similar vibe of just like we're these two kind of fucking wild dudes who will just go off and wreck shit because we feel like it, and you know, fuck the rules.
No, I see that. And I honestly, I do think this is kind of an entertaining little act. You know, Terry Funk doesn't stick around for too long. I don't really,
Which is a shame because he's physically entertaining to watch.
Oh yeah, his ridiculous sell of like they hit him. He takes a hit in the corner turnbuckle, and he like does like a rotation and a half around the ring before he falls over.
It's literally like it literally reads like a Buster Keaton act or something. Like silent era level physical slapstick. Physical slapstick's redundant. But
yeah, it's fantastic. And
yeah, and it's a shame we don't get more of him.
No, he only sticks around for a couple more months after this, and he only just showed up. I don't really know the reason for why that.
But at least you know, at least we know Mick Foley has like a insanely like thriving career to this day.
He does, yes, and he'll get a bigger spotlight in the WWE eventually. We're not going to get that far in tonight.
And I mean, we already in a way spent an entire episode talking about him with the Christmas special.
So get old Santa Claus.
Yeah, I know. It's as a side note, I have finally like been watching through Avatar: The Last Airbender, and whenever I get an episode that has the boulder in it, I just get so happy because I'm like, I know who that is, and it just. I'm just like
Mick Foley doing his best impression of The Rock.
And it's awesome. It makes me really, really happy. Just because again, you can tell he's one of those guys that's so into it, and it's just kind of, you know, he'll roll with whatever, and he's highly dedicated to what he does, and he seems like he's a really cool guy, and like he's just fun. So. That I love me some Mick Foley, so I was here for that match. That was a cool one.
Yeah.
Even if the Quebecers were a whole lot of nothing and it lasted for like fucking 3 minutes.
Speaking of a whole lot of nothing and lasting for 3 minutes, the final match is Jeff Jarrett and Bradshaw.
Jeff Jarrett and Brad. I mean, I have basically the same thing to say about this one as I did when we were in the New Generation. Man. Jeff Jarrett's a physically talented wrestler, and he's fun to watch, but damn, he has no personality.
Yeah, he's very boring. And as I mentioned to David, I just don't understand this whole NWA angle. Like, we talked about it.
I don't either. It doesn't make any sense.
Like, and it's completely disconnected from anything else.
It is like it doesn't fit into any sort of like tournament or title structure that's going on like anywhere else. It's just kind of there. And again, why are we even forcing it to be here if the NWA is a dying brand anyway? Like, what's the point?
And it's not something the WWF audience is clamoring for.
Yeah, like, and it's not like they were obligated to do this or anything.
Yeah, no, I like and like WWF doesn't even have a historical connection with the NWA. They are historically rivals. Like, and the NWA was born out of, WCW was born out of the dying embers of the NWA. And so I get, like, the best thing I can guess, besides being a Jim Cornette pet project, who was one of the head writers at the time, is that it lets you have this quasi ability to beat WCW physically every week, except they never hearken to that.
But it just feels like this weird, like, almost symbolic, like dick wagging from Vince McMahon of like, look what I can do with my money, but it's so meaningless and pointless and has no, like, I feel nothing. It has absolutely no stakes to it. Which is even funnier with the context you gave me that Jeff Jarrett was kind of like disgraced at this point. I doesn't like him, so like, I didn't degrade him.
Yeah, I didn't really mention it at this point, but like, Jeff Jarrett is in the middle of his second run in the WWF after leaving the company pretty soon after, about midway into the new generation. Then he has a run in WCW. Then he comes back to the WWF early in late '97, and he kind of immediately falls off the map because the very first night he comes back, he does this whole worked shoot promo where he rags on Stone Cold Steve Austin's Austin 316 promo for being blasphemous to God. Yeah. And that kind of soured everyone in the back. And that pissed Steve Austin off. And that basically soured Jeff Jarrett's relationship with creative and management at that point.
Yeah. Whatever relationship he had, because he'd already been fucking fired once.
Right, so Vince McMahon just straight doesn't give a fuck about Jeff Jarrett at this point, and that's probably part of why he's stuck doing this.
Yeah, I know. Which it just feels like this weird way for Vince McMahon to piss on his smaller feuds with other random things. Why is this here? It's so weird.
No, and they tried to give the NWA thing a story beat where you have Black Bradshaw's tag team partner Blackjack Barry Windham betraying him to join the NWA group, but I don't care. I couldn't tell. I've watched 6 months worth of this by now, and I couldn't tell you one match the Blackjacks won.
Yeah, It just I'm literally I had no context. Who the fuck are these people? They seem so nothing. They mean nothing, and they don't seem to have any connection to anything past or present or future. We're just kind of they're just here, and all of a sudden we're treating them they're far more major characters than they actually are. Why?
Yeah, and I thought they would have had a more follow up with Owen Hart, because as I kind of threw out there in the first half, is that the big thing coming out of the Royal Rumble for that side of the storyline is that when the Owen Hart came out in the Royal Rumble, they jumped him as he was entering the match. So I would have assumed they would have had some follow up with that in some shape or form, but nope. Not mentioned, not relevant. Owen Hart doesn't give a shit, apparently. The NWA doesn't try to bring it up, so I'm why did you do that? And what happened here?
It just feels like a weird thing to throw in the middle. It's a time filler, I guess. But again, it's cool. Jeff Jarrett's cool to watch because he's clearly very physically gifted and good at what he does in ring. It's just all the rest surrounding it feels so inconsequential.
What a sad note to end this episode on, but that does cover everything.
Yeah, I know. We gotta start we gotta stop doing
all the bad stuff first.
I know. But I mean, overall, again, this was fine. This is one of those episodes that's it's very much the status quo of this is WWE era, WWF in this era at its standard. We have our structure of how we have to do things, and we just kind of throw it all together into this veritable fruit salad of content, where each thing gets its own little bit of time, and we're just kind of paying lip service to whatever plot lines are going on, and then we have one big moment at the end. And it's disappointing that we can't get great episodes every week. That this is kind of more the standard, and it's a little bit more mediocre. But it still does have its entertaining moments, and for that, I can't fault it too hard.
It's wrestling. I wish could be a little more, momentous on a regular basis. But I also understand that it's a 52 a week, 52 a year kind of a show, and we can't all have major things happening every time.
This is an episode that's a great reminder of that, and I'm kind of learning to through this podcast, learning to, I don't want to say um I don't want to say like be okay with this, because like I always wish it could be as good as like the best stuff we watch.
Mhm.
But it's I'm learning to appreciate um the smaller bits of entertainment where I can find it, rather than having it all be like rather than like it kind of being underwhelming as a package, and thus just kind of being disappointed with the whole thing. Like
Yeah,
this is a case where the sum of its parts are greater than the whole.
mhm. Yeah, and I wouldn't even consider that like, that might sound a little close to like lowering your standards or whatever, but I don't
I
really
don't
see it
think
that
so.
way. I think of it as like understanding how the medium works and the way it tells stories, because I think that's relevant to analyzing it and critiquing it, is understanding what it looks like.
Precisely. Um, it it's and it does make me appreciate like um the some of the more individual talents that are up there,
Mhm.
of even if even with like characters, wrestlers that on a whole I dislike, like again Shawn Michael,
Mhm.
on a whole I really don't like Shawn Michael, but I can appreciate when Degeneration X is doing stuff that actually like entertains me and actually gets some chuckles out of me.
Mhm.
Uh, and I can recognize these are people who, even if I deeply kind of don't like them for one reason or other, I can recognize some sort of talent, and I can recognize some entertainment value, and at the very least, I can see why, on a whole, people enjoy these characters, or these
Mhm.
kind of bits. Um, and I do appreciate that, like that like kind of through the podcast I'm getting more of a perspective on that too, of even if it's not perfect, what can I find to be entertained by? Because in a way, WWF, WWE, and professional wrestling on a whole is kind of um is kind of formed on the base of this guerrilla style of entertainment, of
Mhm.
throw everything at the wall, see what sticks.
Absolutely. And so, uh, next week, if you thought that this episode was perhaps a little light on storyline consequences,
Okay.
well, we're gonna not worry about that next week, because next time we've kind of been building to this on this podcast for a couple months now.
Ooh.
In that, the pipe bomb promo was setting up, John Cena versus CM Punk. Well, next week we have our very first pay-per-view episode as we cover Money in the Bank 2011, 10 years ago. Wow, that feels weird to say. CM Punk fought John Cena for the WWE Championship. Let's go.
I'm so excited. Oh god, I've been loving Summer of Punk, and oh man, finally some payoff, and finally I get to watch Money in the Bank. Oh, this is so cool. Now this folks is an over is a wide spanning arc with satisfying payoff. This is how you
Indeed.
do it. Take note, Attitude Era.
David hit the plugs.
Alrighty, my friends, thank you ever so much for spending some quality time with us on the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. We're so happy to have you. If you're a new viewer or listener, welcome for the first time. So happy you could join us. I hope you stick around to join us some more. If you would like to continue to do so and make doing so very easy for you, there are a myriad of ways you can continue to actively pursue our content. First of all, we are on YouTube. You can find the Noobs and Knockouts podcast on YouTube. Please subscribe to us. Leave some likes, comments. We love that. We love that tasty engagement. You can also find us on audio with Spotify, Apple, and Google, and you will no doubt be enjoying just as much our sultry, dulcet tones. And I certainly hope there we can get some tasty engagement and get some likes, get some ratings, reviews, what have you. Just again, if you're enjoying this, let us know. Also, if you want to find us on our socials, we are on Twitter at Noobs N Knox Pod. That's Noobs, the letter N, Knox Pod. You can email us at Noobs and Knox Pod. And that's the word and this time, Noobs and Knox Pod at gmail.com. If you want to write the show, kind of, to give us some feedback, suggest things for future episodes, anything of that sort, just come and say hi. We're always happy to hear from you. And finally, you can find us on Patreon. Join us on our $1 patron tier. Get early access to episodes every week and a shout out in the credits.
Yes, absolutely. So see you guys next time.
Hasta luego.